All right, let's just think back for a second to the early days of the pandemic. I mean, it was wild, right? Everything was completely up in the air, the markets were going nuts. But in the middle of all that chaos, one company saw the opportunity of a lifetime, a real, honest-to-goodness gold rush in the American housing market. And today, we're unpacking the story of Opendoor.
So this is the big question we're tackling. How in the world did this one company manage to ride that insane pandemic housing wave to billions of dollars? And maybe more importantly, was it a solid, lasting business? Or was it just built for that one specific moment in time? We're going to get into it. Okay, Act 1. To really get how Opendoor's rise was so, well, spectacular, you have to understand the environment. It wasn't just a good time for housing. No, it was more like a perfect storm. Every single element came together at just the right time.
So what does Opendoor actually do? Well, they're what's known as an iBuyer. And you got to understand this is a super capital-intensive model. That's just a fancy way of saying they use massive amounts of money, a lot of it borrowed, to buy homes directly from people like you and me. The whole game is to then resell them or flip them super quickly for a profit. And because of that, their entire business is incredibly sensitive to what the market is doing.
And man, during the pandemic, the conditions were perfect. I mean, check out these ingredients for the storm. You had the Fed keeping interest rates at rock bottom, basically historic lows. Then you had this huge surge in demand from everyone working from home and realizing they needed more space. And all of this just sent home prices skyrocketing. It was a red-hot seller's market, which was the absolute ideal playground for a business like Opendoor.
But here's the real kicker, the secret sauce, if you will. In a market where prices are just going up and up and up, Opendoor's risk, well, it pretty much disappeared. Just think about it for a second. They could buy a house, hold on to it for maybe a few weeks, and in that short time, its value would actually increase. This created this insanely powerful positive feedback loop. It made the whole thing look, for a while at least, totally foolproof.
All right, so with that perfect storm blowing right at their back, Opendoor didn't just grow. Nope, they absolutely exploded. The numbers from this period are, well, they're just staggering. Let's look at them. Just get a load of this. $8 billion. That was their total revenue in 2021. And listen, that wasn't just a good year. That was a 211% increase from the year before. I mean, the money was just pouring in. So how did they do it? Simple. They bought houses, a lot of houses. In that same year, they bought almost 37,000 homes. That is a nearly 500% jump in purchases from 2020. They were just gobbling up inventory at a breathtaking speed, trying to scale up to meet this incredible moment. And all that frantic buying and selling, it completely flipped their financials on their head. You can see it right here. For the first time ever, Opendoor actually became profitable on an adjusted basis, which is a really key way to measure a company's core performance. They went from losing almost $100 million in 2020 to making a $58 million profit in 2021. I mean, on paper, the model was finally working. And you got to know, this wasn't just them getting lucky. Not at all. This was a deliberate, aggressive, all-out blitz. They doubled the number of markets they were in to over 40. They launched new products to try and control the entire home selling process, the whole shebang. They were even buying up other tech and mortgage companies. See, they weren't just riding the wave. They were trying to become the ocean.
Okay, Act 3. So while they're celebrating these record numbers and their first real taste of profit, something else was growing. A huge vulnerability, right under the surface. And the crazy part is, it was baked into the very same strategy that was making them so successful.
And this slide really lays it all out. You've got the two sides of the Opendoor story. On one side, you see the massive success, that $8 billion in revenue, the $58 million in profit. But on the other side, you see the risk. You see that all that revenue was tied to this massive growing inventory of homes. The entire model was completely dependent on a housing market that, at the time, seemed like it could never slow down.
And that right there, that's the heart of the issue. The exact same aggressive expansion that fueled their insane growth, buying tens of thousands of homes, also became their Achilles heel. This huge inventory was an amazing asset when prices were climbing, but it was set to become a massive, crushing liability the second the music stopped. It was, in a very real sense, a fatal vulnerability.
You know, the source material we're looking at today just puts it perfectly. This was a classic case of confusing a favorable market environment with an inherently resilient business model. The success,
It was absolutely real, but it was being powered by the hurricane-force tailwinds of a once-in-a-generation market. And the real question is, what happens when that wind just stops?
Which brings us right back to our central question, doesn't it? When we look back at Opendoor's pandemic gold rush, what are we really seeing? Is this a revolutionary tech company that truly changed the real estate game? Or was it more of a massive, capital-intensive gamble that just happened to pay off? A high-stakes bet that the good times would never, ever end? It's a question that really makes you think about risk, timing, and what innovation truly means.